Ladies and gentlemen, we all know that love can be a beautiful, exhilarating, and transformative force. But here's something we often struggle with: the question of why someone, despite loving you, never reaches out. It's something we've all probably wondered about at some point in our lives. Now, I'm here to tell you that this is not a simple black and white issue. There are layers, complexities, and deeper emotional currents at play. One of the most common reasons someone may not contact you even though they love you is the fear of rejection. It's a complicated emotion that many of us experience, whether we like to admit it or not. The fear of rejection can be so paralyzing that it prevents individuals from taking any action. Even when their feelings for the other person are undeniable, the fear of rejection stems from a deep-rooted fear of not being accepted, of being vulnerable, or even of feeling less than. It taps into some of the most fundamental insecurities we all carry around, even if we don't always acknowledge them. Rejection, at its core, represents the possibility of emotional pain. The hurt of realizing that the person you care for doesn't feel the same way, or worse, that they might push you away. This can be an incredibly intimidating thought. For some people, the fear of that emotional fallout is so strong that it outweighs their desire to connect or express their feelings. When someone loves you but doesn't reach out, this fear of rejection may manifest in subtle ways. They may constantly overthink the situation, questioning whether they are doing the right thing by reaching out to you. They may spend endless hours imagining every possible scenario, playing out different conversations in their mind, and wondering how you would respond. Their fear of you not reciprocating their feelings becomes so overwhelming that, in the end, they don't take the chance to express their love. For some, the fear of rejection is tied to their past experiences. They may have faced rejection in previous relationships or have been hurt in ways that left emotional scars. Those past wounds can make it difficult for someone to be open and vulnerable again. They might have experienced the sting of someone turning away from them when they needed love the most, and that rejection lingers in their subconscious, influencing their actions moving forward. Because of that painful history, they hold back, fearing that history might repeat itself, even if they care deeply for you. That lingering fear stops them from reaching out. On top of this, there's the fear of losing control. Sometimes people fear that by reaching out, they might open themselves up to being judged or misinterpreted. They might fear that by expressing their feelings, they would put their emotional well-being in the hands of someone else, which is a vulnerable and sometimes uncomfortable place to be. The prospect of opening up to you and allowing you to have that kind of influence on their emotions is a daunting one. And the fear of rejection becomes a defense mechanism, a way to protect themselves from the risk of emotional pain. Moreover, it's important to recognize that this fear of rejection isn't always about you. It's often more about how they perceive themselves and how they fear they will be perceived. They might fear that they are not good enough for you, that they have flaws or inadequacies that will make you not want to be with them. They might have internalized messages throughout their lives that tell them they are unworthy of love or that they don't deserve to be with someone like you. These negative self-perceptions can greatly amplify their fear of rejection, making it so much harder for them to take the first step and contact you. It's also important to consider that this fear is not always rational. Sometimes the person who loves you might blow things out of proportion in their mind. They might assume that you won't respond the way they hope, even without giving you a chance. Their fear can sometimes create a narrative that simply doesn't exist in reality, And because of that, they may never reach out. They become trapped in a loop of imagined scenarios, allowing their fears to dictate their actions or lack thereof. At the heart of all of this is the very human desire for connection and acceptance. But when that desire collides with fear, it can cause someone to hold back. They love you, but the fear of rejection creates an emotional barrier they can't seem to overcome. This internal struggle can leave them frozen in place, unsure of how to move forward. And so instead of reaching out, they choose silence, hoping that perhaps one day they will gather the courage to bridge that gap. The second key reason why someone may not contact you even though they love you is emotional overwhelm. Love can be an intense, powerful force, and for some people it brings a sense of vulnerability that they may not know how to handle. When someone falls deeply for another person, it can stir up a variety of complex emotions: joy, hope, excitement, but also fear, confusion, and uncertainty. These emotions can become so overwhelming that they cloud a person's ability to think clearly or act with confidence. Instead of reaching out to express their feelings, they may retreat into themselves, struggling to manage their emotional state. The feeling of emotional overwhelm is often triggered when love begins to stir up deep-seated insecurities or fears. For some people, the idea of being emotionally invested in someone else can be frightening. When they realize how strongly they feel for you, it may trigger doubts about whether they're truly ready to be vulnerable in that way. They may question if they're prepared to handle the intensity of love, or whether they have the emotional capacity to maintain a relationship. The weight of these questions can feel heavy, and instead of facing them head on, they might choose to distance themselves, avoiding any action that could further complicate their emotions. For others, love can feel like a whirlwind of conflicting feelings. While they want to connect with you and share their love, they may also feel afraid of losing themselves in the process. They may worry about becoming too dependent on you, losing their independence, or losing control over their emotions. The intensity of love can make them feel unmoored, as though they are no longer in control of their own destiny. This can create a deep sense of unease, and as a result, they may pull away, hoping that by avoiding contact, they can regain their emotional equilibrium. Their reluctance to reach out stems from the fear of being swept away by their own feelings, which might feel overwhelming and out of their control. Emotional overwhelm can also occur when someone becomes afraid of the expectations that love brings. When you love someone, there's often an unspoken pressure to meet certain expectations, to be there for them, to be emotionally available, to maintain a connection. For someone who is already struggling to navigate their own emotions, the thought of adding additional emotional responsibility can feel suffocating. They might fear that they won't be able to live up to those expectations or that they'll fail in some way. Instead of facing these fears and potentially feeling inadequate, they may choose to retreat into themselves and avoid reaching out. Furthermore, love often brings with it a deep sense of hope. When someone loves you, they imagine the future, they dream of what could be, and they invest emotionally in the possibility of a relationship. This hope can be beautiful, but it also adds pressure. If the person is unsure about the outcome, or if they fear that the relationship won't work out, it can create a lot of anxiety. They may become so overwhelmed by the potential for both joy and heartbreak that they become paralyzed. The fear of putting themselves out there only to face disappointment can feel like too much to bear, so they choose silence instead of risking the emotional roller coaster that might come with expressing their love. This emotional turmoil can also be compounded by a lack of self-confidence. Some people are simply not sure they are worthy of the love they feel. They may feel that they are not enough for you, or they may worry that their emotional baggage will be too much for you to handle. These insecurities can become magnified when someone loves deeply, and they may be afraid that exposing those vulnerabilities will only lead to rejection or disappointment. This overwhelming fear of inadequacy can hold them back from reaching out, as they might fear that showing their true emotions will make them appear weak or undeserving. Ultimately, emotional overwhelm is a complex, multi-layered experience. It's not always about the other person not caring or not being interested in you. In many cases, it's about their own struggle with the emotional intensity of love. When faced with emotions that are so profound, it can be difficult to know how to navigate them. Rather than reach out and risk the emotional chaos they feel inside, they may choose to stay silent, retreating into themselves in an effort to regain control over their emotions. The third key reason why someone may never contact you despite loving you is the influence of past hurt. Past emotional wounds have a profound impact on how individuals approach love and relationships. Someone who has experienced pain, betrayal, or heartbreak in previous relationships may carry that emotional baggage with them into future connections. This history of hurt can shape the way they view themselves and their capacity for love, often leading them to retreat or avoid reaching out, even when their feelings are genuine. For some individuals, past hurt creates a deep sense of vulnerability that they aren't ready to face again. The fear of going through the same emotional turmoil that they experienced before can be overwhelming. When they begin to feel the stirrings of love again, old wounds may resurface, causing them to question whether they are strong enough to handle the potential pain. Even though they care for you deeply, the memory of past betrayals, rejections, or heartaches makes them hesitant to fully open up and take the risk of loving again. The idea of being vulnerable once more, only to be hurt again, may seem too risky, and so they choose to stay distant. The fear of being hurt again can be compounded by feelings of self-doubt. Someone who has been hurt in the past may start to question their own worthiness of love. They might feel like they didn't deserve the pain they experienced before, leading them to develop a defensive mindset. When they meet someone they truly care for, like you, they may find themselves questioning whether they are worthy of experiencing love without pain. The fear of making themselves vulnerable again can trigger these feelings of inadequacy, and as a result, they hold back from reaching out. The emotional scars they carry from previous experiences cause them to second guess whether they can trust their own judgment or whether they are simply setting themselves up for another disappointment. In addition to the personal impact of past hurt, the emotional baggage someone carries from previous relationships can also distort their perceptions of new connections. Someone who has been hurt before may carry an unconscious belief that love is always paired with pain. They may start to anticipate that any emotional investment will eventually lead to heartache, even if the person they are involved with now is completely different. This skewed perception can make them overly cautious or suspicious even when they feel love. They may fear that if they allow themselves to get too close to you, they will end up in a similar situation to the one they experienced before, filled with disappointment, betrayal, or emotional chaos. In this way, past hurt creates a barrier that prevents them from reaching out as they anticipate the worst, even without any reason to believe that it will happen again. Additionally, past hurt can lead to a general mistrust of others. When someone has been let down or deceived in the past, they may become cynical about love and relationships. They might begin to believe that people are untrustworthy or that no relationship is truly safe. If someone has been cheated on or emotionally manipulated before, for example, it can lead to a deep-seated fear of being taken advantage of again. This can make it difficult for them to trust you even if they care about you. Their mind might race with thoughts like, what if this person is just like the others? What if they hurt me too? Instead of reaching out, they pull back, trying to protect themselves from getting hurt a second time. Even when someone truly loves you, the shadows of past hurt can cast a long and powerful influence. The pain they have experienced before isn't easily forgotten, and it shapes how they interact with you and others. The thought of potentially enduring that same pain again can be enough to stop them from taking any action, even when their heart tells them otherwise. They might care deeply, but their experiences have created emotional walls that they aren't ready to tear down, making it difficult for them to reach out and be open to a new connection. Their past experiences have taught them to protect themselves at all costs, even if that means staying silent and avoiding the risk of emotional pain. The fourth key reason someone may not contact you despite loving you is the influence of pride and ego. These two emotional forces play a significant role in how we navigate relationships, especially when it comes to expressing vulnerability. Pride and ego are often misunderstood as negative traits, but they can also be a defense mechanism that people use to protect themselves from potential hurt or disappointment. For someone who truly cares for you, the desire to maintain their sense of self-worth and avoid being seen as too vulnerable can make them hesitant to reach out, even when they have deep feelings for you. Pride often stems from the need to maintain a sense of independence and control over one's emotions. When someone loves you, they may fear that expressing those feelings will make them appear too dependent on you or too eager. They may worry that by reaching out, they will seem too much or too desperate, which is something many people try to avoid, especially when they want to maintain their self-respect. The fear of losing control over their own emotions or appearing weak in front of you can be a powerful deterrent. This pride can create an internal battle where they desire to express their love, but their fear of appearing vulnerable or overly emotional outweighs that desire. In this case, their pride keeps them from reaching out, as they would rather protect their sense of dignity than risk being hurt or rejected. Ego plays a similar role, but it is often more concerned with how others perceive us. For someone with a strong sense of ego, the idea of being rejected or not having their feelings reciprocated can feel like a blow to their self-esteem. Their ego might prevent them from reaching out because they fear the possibility of rejection would damage their self-image. Even if they love you deeply, they may feel that if you do not respond the way they hope, it would somehow diminish their sense of self-worth. The need to preserve their image, protect their ego, and avoid any situation where they might feel humiliated can lead them to withhold communication, even when they are longing to connect with you. Another aspect of ego and pride is the tendency to want to be the one in control of a situation. Some people feel uncomfortable with the idea of opening up to someone else because it places them in a position of vulnerability. Vulnerability to many feels like relinquishing control, which is something their ego resists. They might convince themselves that they should not show their emotions first or express their love unless they are certain that the other person feels the same way. This desire to be in control of how much of themselves they share can prevent them from taking the first step to reach out. They might wait for you to make the first move, not because they don't care, but because their pride or ego dictates that they should not be the one to show their cards first. Additionally, some people's pride is deeply connected to past experiences, particularly in relationships. If they have experienced rejection, betrayal, or hurt before, their pride may have been bruised. In these situations, pride can become a shield they use to protect themselves from further emotional harm. When they love someone, the fear of being hurt again can make them hesitant to reach out. They may not want to put themselves in a position where they might be rejected or made to feel less than. Their pride tells them that they are worthy of being pursued, not the other way around. This belief can create a barrier that keeps them from initiating contact, even though their feelings for you may be genuine and deep. Pride and ego are complex, often unconscious forces that influence our behavior in relationships. Even when love is present, they can keep someone from reaching out due to a fear of vulnerability, rejection, or the loss of control. The need to protect one's self and self-image and avoid the potential for emotional harm can be so strong that it overrides the desire to connect. For someone struggling with these emotional forces, the act of contacting you can feel like a loss of power or an emotional risk that they're not yet willing to take. The fifth key reason someone may not contact you even though they love you is miscommunication. Communication is the cornerstone of any healthy relationship, yet it is one of the easiest areas where misunderstandings can arise. People often assume they know how someone feels or what someone wants, but assumptions can be misleading, and the way we express or interpret emotions can differ greatly from one person to another. When someone loves you but doesn't reach out, it's possible that they believe you are not interested, or they may think that you are waiting for them to make the first move. These assumptions, however, can be based on inaccurate readings of the situation, which leads to a breakdown in communication and consequently missed opportunities to connect. One of the main issues is that people often believe that love is obvious or should be understood without being said. It's easy to assume that someone knows how much you care because of your actions, your presence, or small gestures. However, love is not a universal language, and each person interprets affection differently. While one person might feel love through constant attention or words of affirmation, another might feel love through small acts of kindness or personal space. If someone's love language does not match yours, they might not realize that you want them to reach out, or they might not understand the best way to express their feelings towards you. This discrepancy can lead to confusion, where both parties are unsure of what the other truly wants or feels. Moreover, people often avoid direct communication about their feelings due to the fear of vulnerability. It's easier to keep things in the realm of assumptions rather than openly express what's in your heart. The person who loves you might not know how to start that conversation or may fear it will make the situation awkward. As a result, they assume that you understand their feelings, and they may believe that their love is already clear enough without the need for direct communication. But these assumptions only deepen the misunderstanding, and what could be an honest conversation about emotions turns into a missed opportunity to connect. Additionally, past experiences can play a major role in how someone communicates in a relationship. If they've been hurt in previous relationships by miscommunication or false assumptions, they may carry that caution into new connections. They might have been in situations where their feelings were misinterpreted or ignored, leading them to be more guarded and less likely to be open about their emotions. The fear of being misunderstood again can prevent someone from reaching out, as they might believe that expressing their love could lead to more confusion or rejection. They may choose to remain silent, hoping that you will eventually understand their feelings through actions or subtle cues. In some cases, someone might be holding back from reaching out because they believe that the other person is just as hesitant. Miscommunication often arises when both parties are waiting for the other to make the first move. If one person is waiting for the other to initiate contact, They may wrongly assume that the other person isn't interested. This creates a situation where both people are in a kind of emotional limbo, each afraid to take that first step because they think the other is either not ready or not reciprocating the feelings. The longer this goes on, the more entrenched the miscommunication becomes, with both people potentially missing out on the connection that could have been. The idea that love should be felt and not necessarily verbalized is another key reason for this kind of miscommunication. People often believe that actions speak louder than words, and while actions are important, love also requires clear verbal communication. If someone is loving you without explicitly saying so, and you are doing the same, the lack of clear verbal affirmation can leave both parties unsure of the actual depth of the connection. This confusion can lead to missed chances to connect, and in some cases, the person who loves you may hesitate to reach out because they fear that the feelings are not as clear to you as they are to them. In relationships, the assumption that the other person is on the same emotional wavelength can lead to a kind of emotional paralysis. Both individuals may be unsure of what the other truly wants, leading to missed opportunities for connection. Miscommunication creates emotional distance, and instead of openly discussing their feelings, people may choose to hold back, allowing their assumptions and uncertainties to dominate the situation. Without clear, open communication, even deep love can be left unspoken, and reaching out becomes an obstacle instead of an opportunity. The sixth key reason why someone may never contact you, even though they love you, is a lack of emotional readiness. Emotional readiness refers to an individual's capacity to handle the vulnerability and responsibilities that come with being in a relationship. Some people may love you deeply, but they feel unprepared to engage in the emotional work that love requires. This lack of readiness could stem from various factors such as unresolved personal issues, emotional trauma, or a fear of being in a committed relationship. The person might have the desire to love you, but they are not in a place where they can manage their emotions and the dynamics of a relationship in a healthy way. One reason someone might feel emotionally unready is because they are still processing their own personal struggles or past experiences. For instance, they could be dealing with unresolved trauma or painful memories from previous relationships. If they have been hurt in the past, they may carry that emotional baggage into any new potential connection, making them hesitant to open up to someone new. They might love you, but the emotional wounds they have not yet healed from prevent them from feeling capable of fully committing to you. The unresolved issues can cause them to feel overwhelmed by the thought of sharing their heart with someone else, and they might worry that they will not be able to meet the emotional demands that love requires. This emotional unavailability can lead them to pull away or avoid reaching out, even though their feelings are genuine. In addition, someone may be emotionally unready because they have not yet fully developed a sense of self or independence. A person who struggles with insecurity or lacks a strong sense of self-worth might be afraid that entering a relationship will mean losing their personal identity. They may love you but feel uncertain about whether they can handle the balance between love and personal independence. If they are unsure about who they are outside of a relationship, they may fear that they won't be able to give you their full self or will lose their sense of individuality in the process. This fear of becoming emotionally entangled or losing their autonomy can make them hesitant to reach out or to express their feelings, despite their deep love